like an Asian, Chinese, Japanese, dragon, stuff.
Okay, so like a serpent with...
How I see things when I can see better. I'm working through an unblocking now. There's a black spot, almost like a scrying mirror on any surface I look at when I see things through that, and that's what I saw.
Welcome. I'm here with Benton Ryer. Benton, welcome.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me on.
Yeah, you definitely undersell yourself on your website, because I had a deep dive on you on ChatGPT, and you actually have extensive experience in what we're about to talk about.
I do.
So,
yes.
With that, can you just tell the audience who you are, where you came from, and what you've been studying for 20 plus years?
My name's Benton. I'm from California. I spent a lot of time in Asia and Japan. I actually went to high school there. I've been studying and reading esoterics since I was a kid. I was born with abilities, and over time I put myself on a trajectory to expand them out and see how far I could go with them. Mm-hmm. And when I was a teenager, I had a martial arts instructor who's a very good fighter. I respected him just for that. And he was from Hawaii. He didn't believe in any of this stuff, obviously. He tended towards the more evangelical Christian side of things. But when he was a kid, his dad made him do Kung Fu. And he didn't want to do it. He wanted to fight. But his dad made him do it, because of, he was half Chinese and for his tradition and for those reasons. And once a year, his instructor would send out to China for the masters. And he would tell me that they did all these things that he didn't understand. And I used to wonder, well, maybe I could do some of those things. So that kind of set itself to the side a little bit. But it was kind of in my mind, and I kind of ran with that. After a while of practicing, you tend to maybe question yourself, wondering if what I'm doing is a waste of time. But luckily, it turned out it wasn't, because I could do things publicly. And it's quite potent. The purifications I do, I could do them to one person or big groups at the same time. And there doesn't seem to be an upper limit of how many people at once. So.
Okay, so you kind of spent some time in Japan, in high school. You focused on esoterica as well as martial arts, studying that. How did you get into kind of Shinto and healing? And first of all, what is Shinto, high level, and, for people who...
Do you want to talk about Shinto first, or do you want to talk about shamanism first?
Shinto first, and then we'll save shamanism.
So I'm going to go ahead and read you the introduction for a book I'm working on. It's fully finished, and I'm going to read it to you like I'm reading the book. So this is the introduction. And before we dive into the veiled dimensions of Shinto, I encourage Western readers to gently set aside the framework they may unconsciously carry when approaching non-Western spiritual systems. Shinto is not a religion in the doctrinal or monotheistic sense. It has no founder, no central scripture, no moral commandments, and no concept of conversion or salvation. It is not something one believes in. It is a way of being in relationship. At its core, Shinto is about maintaining harmony with the unseen world of kami, spiritual presence that dwell in nature, in ancestral memory, in places, and in forces beyond what we see. These are not gods to be worshipped out of fear, nor demons to be battled. They are living presences woven into the fabric of the natural world and the universe. As a practitioner and shaman within this tradition, I experience Shinto not as a belief system, but as a dialogue with land, with spirit, and the energetic reality that underlies all things. Through purification, offerings, and sincere reverence, we restore our connection to the kami and begin the journey back to what Shinto calls our original brightness, that clear and balanced state of soul that exists when we are aligned with both heaven and earth. I want to make clear a distinction between modern public Shinto, as it is commonly encountered at shrines, festivals, and cultural events in Japan, and what is called Esoteric Shinto or Ko-Shinto. Today, public Shinto in Japan often appears formal, ritualistic, and surface level. Its practices are typically centered on seasonal ceremonies, shrine visits for fortune or protection, and rites of passage like weddings or New Year blessings. While deeply meaningful, this form of Shinto rarely touches on the mystical and experiential depths that once defined the spiritual lives of shamans, mediums, ascetics, and secret practitioners. Furthermore, as a shaman within this tradition, I carry insights that few others can offer. Insights rooted not just in study, but in a direct spiritual experience. One of the reasons I'm writing this book is to give those who attend my group purification rites, many of whom have never heard of Shinto before, I would say most, deeper understanding of what they are engaging with. This knowledge is meant to endure, to be carried forward by those who feel its resonance. Those who have participated in my healing sessions often speak of their profound effect, of how something unseen feels restored. That is not by accident. Within the cosmos, there exists an original state of purity and brightness, a luminous harmony between humans, nature, and the Commune. When that balance is disturbed, illness, misfortune, and confusion arise. The purpose of these rites and of this book is to assist in restoring that brightness, to clear the spiritual debris that clouds it, and to help others remember the sacred clarity that has always been part of the human soul, yet remains widely unidentified. Don't get me wrong. This book goes as far as it can within the constraints of historical evidence, spiritual integrity, public understanding, and only some of my experiences. But no, there is more, much more. There are dimensions of esoteric Shinto and the occult that extend beyond what can be reasonably included here. These include the realities of spirit travel, divine intercession, ancestral oaths, and the countless realms that surround us. Each of these require their own volumes. That work is coming. For now, understand that this book opens the gate, but is not the whole path. What this book does uncover is not the Shinto travel brochures or shrine etiquette, but the hidden Shinto, the one practiced in mountain caves, whispered through inherited prayers, or carried on in quiet by those who still know how to speak with spirits. Esoteric Shinto includes the mystical techniques, the guarded knowledge, the private exorcisms, the spirit pacts, and the use of mirrors, symbols, and the classical elements. These are not performed for show, but for healing and the restoration of spiritual balance. So to read this book is a step into a worldview where purification is protection and spirits, whether benevolent or malevolent, are real. These forces are not metaphors or archetypes. They are unseen agents behind both chaos and renewal, harmony and affliction. In this tradition, spiritual reality is not symbolic. It is immediate, tangible, and influential. Misfortune, illness, and even strange emotional shifts are not random. They are signs of imbalance in the spiritual field, signs that something unseen has gone unaddressed. Shinto does not ask you to believe. It asks you to notice, to recognize patterns, to sense subtle shifts, to remember what your body already knows when it walks beneath ancient trees or feels a chill in still air. Finally, this is not a book about beliefs. It is a book about encounters. You are not being asked to join anything. You are being invited to witness the spaces between humans and the unseen world. In doing so, you may come to understand how the kami still speak and how the most ancient of paths was never lost, only veiled.
To advertise on Through a Glass Darkly, email throughaglassdarkly@gmail.com.
So that's the introduction. Thank you for listening. That went a little longer than I realized it would, but that's basically what Shinto is. There's two main kind of practices within it. It's purification of the energetic bodies, and also veneration of spirits within nature, or maintaining balance with the spirits in nature. So those are the two esoteric practices. I mentioned that there are more surface level ritualistic practices that you can see in Japan, and they're almost like performances, even to the point where before you enter a shrine, you wash your hands, you wash your mouth, but it was never really supposed to be just that. The purification is energetic. And when you align yourself with the kami of heaven, especially, you're able to do the types of healings that I do, and other abilities start to open up in a very potent, noticeable way. That's not just noticeable to you, but also noticeable to the people that you work with and on.
Now, how did you learn how to do all this stuff? Did you have a teacher, a mentor?
I had a mentor, but a lot of shamanistic traditions, it happens a couple ways. Either the elders within your tribe or your community recognize you as one and start training you. They'll notice that maybe you have a lot of seizures, or you're always tired, or something like that, which traditionally means that your body is not integrated with your spirit properly. So they'll start training you. Or the spirit comes to you and basically says, try this and this, and you do it and it works, which is the case with me.
So let's go there.
Which I wouldn't tell anyone except I can actually do what I say, and people can witness it for themselves.
Can you talk a little bit about that experience? Like, was it a dream? Was it a physical manifestation? Was it when did it happen?
I've had physical manifestations and dreams. I've been very clairvoyant since I was a kid. The Shinto spirits probably really showed themselves to me during the pandemic when I was in isolation. It was this thing where try practicing this and this and this. So I did. And sure enough, when I started working on people or went out on a limb and thought, okay, I'll try it now, it worked. It worked. The healings are very strong. And it's not just an emotional healing, although there is that. It's so much deeper that people can actually feel uncomfortable, especially when trauma is involved and we're releasing trauma. I just did a video about that today before the podcast and uploaded it.
By the way, what's your YouTube channel so that people can go on this?
It's at Benton Ryer. You just look Benton Ryer up on YouTube, and I'm right there. I have some
link will be below.
Yep. I have some videos about some esoteric topics, and I do a live healing every single night. Do that right now. About 30 to 40 people come every night. And it's just been growing. I haven't been doing it for long. I was doing it on Zoom for a while, but it was slow because it was through Meetup and Zoom. YouTube's working a lot better.
Now, going back to this experience, I think in the pandemic, what sort of visitation did you see? Is it something you can describe, or is it more of a
dreams? A dragon in my wall. Yeah. I've never told anyone that. That's exclusive.
Well, you just told at least, or close to 15,000 people.
Oh, you have that many? Well,
no, I have not that many subscribers. I think I feel like I should have a lot more, but every person who has a podcast on YouTube thinks that way. But I have about 14,200 as of today. When this airs, hopefully it'll be more.
Well, that's a lot. It's more than I have.
It depends. It takes a while for some people like me. We're not very bright. Again, I'm very curious. So you saw a dragon on your wall. What did it look like? Was it
a dragon, like an Asian, Chinese, Japanese dragon staring.
Okay,
right at
so like
me.
a serpent with
How
legs,
I see
basically.
things, I see things when I could see better. I'm working through an unblocking now. There's a black spot, almost like a scrying mirror on any surface I look at, and I see things through that. And that's what I saw. That's the first time it really, well, no, not necessarily. But yeah, that's what I saw. And when not many things actually show themselves through there, but it did. And spirits only show themselves, or these type of spirits only show themselves for very specific purposes. They don't do it for no reason. And they definitely don't sit on a stage in front of 500 people and repeat stuff from a Napoleon Hill or self-help book. They don't do that. Then there's no
it's more
historical
symbolic, I
context
think,
of
like you
that.
said.
What was that?
I think you said earlier it was more symbolic, through symbolic
It's
representation.
more symbolic. They do talk. They will tell you stuff that it's not available anywhere. But if there's like a book on something or some information out there or a person out there that could teach you, they'll just be like, read the book, man.
And how do they speak to you? Like, is it telepathically? Is it
In riddles. And I hear it through my eardrum when I do, for the most part. That's how I hear. Most people are a little different.
And how did you react when this thing just appeared? Was it?
I mean, I was able to hear things before. No fear. I just kind of stared at it. Didn't say anything, just looking at me.
Was it like a projection? Was it physical? Was it kind of moving?
No,
So I'm sorry, I'm asking all these questions.
No,
The audience would love
good
to hear.
questions.
Yeah.
No, it looked at me, straight at me, still, three-dimensional, completely solid. People have an idea that mediums might see things like as a ghost or something's like a specter, but usually it's, for a lot of people with shamanic ability, they'll appear as, like me talking to you now. Except it was in black and white. It was like in like different shades of white. And it was weird because it didn't have any shadows either. But I was still able to make out the lines and edges. And it's really hard to describe.
It's a pretty good description. I'll probably try to replicate it using AI for this episode to add some color to it. But even though it had no color, it sounds like it was just, white is.
I don't know if I should have told you that. I'm trying to get people to my healings to help them clear and understand how
the fact that you said that here makes you more credible in the sense that if somebody was kind of a snake oil salesman, they wouldn't say that. They would just start talking about the results right away and like, out of 40 people, I've healed 27 and, I saved 6 lives. Like they would be doing stuff like that. And I haven't even asked you questions like that. And you haven't even started talking about things like that.
I see.
We'll get there. But I'm trying to build to it and just try to understand a little bit. And is this in any way tied to you living in Japan, as if some of the, like a kami or something, not like, Russian kami, but like in the Japanese tradition, kami, kind of an attachment followed you back? Or is this something that is just everywhere you go, it's just around us?
It was something I was obviously predispositioned to. My mom's from Japan. And I already had abilities, and it just always seemed like this bigger, like, plan. I hate speaking in those terms because you hear that from so many folks, and I don't like it. But it just seems to have all sort of fell into place the way it's been falling into place. So I stopped questioning misfortune about a year ago and just kind of, take things as they come. So.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a universal lesson since the pandemic. And it seems to unlock things for you. It's almost as if the reality is there's some scripted aspect to reality where it feels new to us, but time is likely just simultaneous and we're just in the present moment. And
The way Amitate also explained it to me or showed me is that time for them is instantaneous and they experience it as different travel points. So if like a commie is with me in one place and goes to see someone else at the other side of the world, on the other side of the world right after, it would be like tunneling through the instantaneous moment. Does that make sense?
yeah, let me try to
It's really, we don't have much.
concretize it.
Yeah.
So there are 4 dimensions, or we perceive reality in 4 dimensions, right? So height, width, depth, and time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But time could just be, you could conceive it, if you think of it like another physical dimension, right? Someone who's outside of time could go backward in time. They're just going to that point in space time at whatever moment. And it's just like, and it's just another destination. And that they could be visiting some person in the past, 50 years before they talk, before you, but they talked to you before because you were on the first destination that they had. And it's just, they're not bound by time, right?
Exactly. So the dragon could be here and it could be 50 years in the past and right after, and it'd be experiencing it as we experience moving forward in time. And it could jump from point to point, or the kami can jump from point to point. And that's basically my understanding of it.
Which is why it can be apparent to us sometimes that there's an orchestration of certain events that happen now that kind of lead to a certain place in the future, that it just seems like everything fell into place perfectly and it could have just been somehow orchestrated that way.
Right.
Where if you do this, then it'll lead you to this, that, this, etc.
Yes.
Okay. I think this is helpful. All right. So apologies, this is a bit narcissistic, but what led you to my show?
What led you to my show?
Because this
Well,
is,
actually,
you're saying these entities speak to you, et cetera, et cetera.
No, somebody from my group I've been trying to get on more shows. Someone that comes to my healing suggested I contact you. She said, I guess one of your guests is like, he knows like so much, but he's like missing a few pieces, and you have those pieces. You should go on the show and talk with them and maybe they'll get it. So I emailed you, and you, to your credit, you got back to me right away. Usually, I've been trying to get on more programs, and I'll usually be ignored, or they see my message, but I'll usually be ignored or given a vague reply, or make the person making it sound like they're doing me a favor from not having me on, which I could see through it. I know what their intentions and what they mean right away.
Yeah, I hope I'm never that arrogant.
Well, like I said, that's one of the issues. Like, people build these platforms around themselves with the perception, to build the perception that they are the expert on the subject. And when someone comes in and can turn the axis of the whole conversation, they get really anxious about that.
Well, fortunately, Benton, I don't know shit. And the more I delve into this stuff, the less I understand. I mean, I have broader knowledge, but the more humility I have to say, like, I'm not even scratching the surface on the greater reality. I was on more.
One person's show, and I love his kind of intro. He says, we keep asking questions and we avoid the people who have all the answers. And that's so accurate, because being out in the esoteric, or especially new age spaces, like, I would notice that on most of the folks, almost all of them, they always have an answer. Whatever you ask them, they have an answer. It's like they never say, I don't know. There's a ton of stuff I don't know yet. So I hope I learned. I keep trying to move forward. I'm always trying to become stronger in what I do. Some would call it trying to become more powerful. But it's just, I think it's like the desire to have a natural progression in your own ability is just a part of, the human condition. And for people not to do that and just be kind of set where they're at, they're doing themselves a disservice. But it's a telltale sign that the person doesn't really know what they're talking about, because you cannot have all the answers. Or they're being, in the case of people who are doing actual channeling at these events, for that have are doing what they say, they're not being completely honest with the messages that they're giving people.
Say more about that.
Well, fundamentally, channeling is possession, and fundamentally, channeling is possession.
It could be. Look, I come from a Catholic tradition, so channeling. I don't want to say that it's always wrong, or it's my upbringing would say it's basically possession and it's wrong. But I don't know what to make of it yet, and I haven't interviewed many channelers, if any, because I'm still not sure about it. I still don't understand. I do believe that there's some percentage that are just pure hucksters.
Yeah, the majority.
There's some, I haven't delved too far into it. There are some who are legit in some way. And then in that population, I'm not sure if they're with whatever they're channeling, where's it coming from? What is it? Like, who's occupying their bodies? You're basically allowing some other entity to occupy your body. So anyway, that's.
And
I didn't mean to interrupt.
Benevolent. Okay, so
right.
So I deal with two types of possession. The most of it is like small energetic impurities, but there's also partial possession. Everyone is possessed to a certain extent. I will expand on that in
It's like parasites. There's
like parasites, yeah, but it's still a form of exorcism and possession. Energetic parasites. They affect people in different ways. Some of them get to people that are stronger, or the parasite stronger and is able to connect to the person more for various reasons and cause them to do all of these things. And how we would see like the type of huckster channeler who's obviously telling lies. So there's still something doing that to them. Okay? It's a blockage, and making them do something that helps them feed on the attention that they get or whatever else. In the Shinto worldview, it's an impurity that needs to be removed because it's not part of the person's natural state. Human beings are fundamentally pure. However, because we are in this place or in this world in a physical manner with an unseen world around us with all sorts of agendas, we're susceptible to them, especially because the vast majority of people have no perception towards this. As far as people that are channeling, there's a little bit more there. And I think the idea, from what I see, is like these things that they're channeling and trying to bring through are basically just trying to get our bodies. It's like a soft test to, take over people fully, because apparently they used to have bodies and they lost it going into the direction we're going, which I also think they're, pushing and guiding us to. And don't ask me who. There's a lot of agendas, lots of things want to do that. But ETs, other things just want our energy. Everything's different.
Yeah, there's a person I interviewed, Jerry Merzinski. He worked 40 years with paranoid schizophrenics.
Mm-hmm.
And the conclusion he came to, and by the way that they deal with it is they just heavily medicate them and just dull their senses, basically, because there is no cure in the modern medical establishment. Morzynski claims to have cured them through some sort of meditative technique, etc. But at the end of the day, he theorized that they're just parasitic entities and feed off of negative energy.
Yeah, but it can be more than that too. It could be more than that too.
Oh,
Some
possession
people end
too.
up being gone, kicking the person out and just being there instead. I do that too. It's possible. And you'd also be surprised how many psychologists contact me and say, hey, can you give me some insight? I think my patient might be possessed. So it's quite common. People in the psychiatric industry, they can see it happening, but they can't say anything because their colleagues or the board that governs those practices would pull their license. But there's a lot of
only reason he got away with what he was doing, like he surreptitiously or kind of tried testing in a, ethical way with, their consent and things like that, with no use of drugs or anything like that. But it was found out that his patients were getting better.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a red flag, right? So he was almost driven out of a mental institution or hospital that he was working at. So then he spent the majority of his career in prisons. And in prison, they don't care, right? So he had more freedom to try to help these patients. But these voices that these people were hearing, many times they were, telling their hosts to kill him.
Yes. And also there's two ways that can work. For some people who have that affliction, they'll actually hear the voice. They'll know it's separate. But the other ones that are more dangerous are the ones who think that it's their own thoughts, because these things will co-opt people's thoughts too.
That's exactly what he said.
Which is why you hear people being interviewed after their case. Someone will ask, well, why'd you do it? They'll be, I don't know why he did it. Or they blacked out, or, it's a lot of times it's an answer like that. They never say, I do it because I love it. So I've never heard that before. I've never heard a killer say that. They don't know why they did it. They might get a rush out of it, but that rush is feeding something attached.
Okay. All right. So there are these attachments, etc. How did you get into healing, and how does that all work? I'll ask more questions after that, but yeah.
So here's the thing. I'm not healing anything. I mean, I am, but I'm not in the type of idea of energy healing where energy kind of heals people. I'm actually removing stuff, and different elements have different spirits attached to them. So when I pull off that spirit, it kills the element or the pain. That's basically how it works, or the mechanics of it. It can be quite complicated, especially with things like schizophrenia, like mental conditions. That's the hardest stuff to get rid of. Believe it or not, the physical stuff is easier to get. But yeah, because of the shamanic vision, I'm just able to see what's going on with someone, or I'll get a feeling or an idea of what it is, and I'll be able to work on it and pull it out. I invoke the goddess of the sun and usually burn it away. She doesn't fight. She sort of illuminates. That's the idea, and that's part of the vision.
Who's the goddess of the sun?
Amaterasu.
Okay, in the Shinto tradition.
Yeah.
Okay, and how long have you been running? Well, talk a little bit about kind of the Zoom kind of meetings you have, I think, every night.
So they're on Zoom now. They're on Facebook Live, not Facebook Live, YouTube Live. I do them every night. And I do these purifications. I have people lie down, and when I start doing the Norito, or like a Japanese prayer calling for purification, people can start feeling stuff being lifted and pulled out of them. It's not placebo. People know that something's happening because they can experience it. Granted, none of them have really even heard of Shinto before, but because they're having experience, they're listening. The hardest part, though, retention is hard, believe it or not. Although there's an experience happening, there's also a trauma release. And when that structure is removed, people feel that, and sometimes they think I'm doing something to them. But really, that trauma is being removed. Yet people don't really like that explanation. However, the problem with trauma is when we carry it around and bury it, our perception sees the world through that trauma. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Even unconsciously. Like, how many people have you ever known who have had...
Well, it's like being a victim. Some people define themselves by being a victim.
Exactly, but you can't blame them for that because they're seeing the world through that trauma. And at the same time, how many people have you ever met who've had a bad relationship and see all their potential and future relationships the same exact way? It's very common. So when I work on something like that someone that has that, although it's being released, it doesn't feel good while they're doing it. And they're more used to more superficial healings. So they have nothing to contextualize something that's so strong with. So that's the other thing that this works on. And unfortunately, because people carry that around, sometimes it's harder to retain people. It's not all about me. It's not all about just coming to my groups. There's an individual practice too, where it helps you do like a self-purification. I'm working on it. It's going to be in the book. I'm going as fast as I can. I might come up with a short version of the book with just that, so people can start doing it themselves. There's a few aspects. There's the group purifications, which I recommend for now, and the personal ones. And the reason why I ask people to do the group ones too is for the same reason why I've trained people to watch my back, because things can often attach to the shaman or the mystic without them knowing. So whenever something feels like a little off, even in the slightest, you become very sensitive to energy when you feel this. When you do this, I have one of them look and, try to pull whatever it is off. And it just goes.
Can they actually deep. See these energies?
Mm-hmm. Yes, they can. Yes, they can. So the idea is that our senses have been dulled. They've been blocked and dulled because of interference. And the idea of the purification is to remove all that. And like I said in the introduction for the book, move back to our natural state of being able to perceive these energies and unseen forces and even control them in some cases, right? Especially in terms of them affecting us, because they're not supposed to be able to do that. They're trespassing on our world, and they're able to blindside us because we cannot see, or most of us cannot see them. That's when it's so important. It's very important.
How do people develop this ability to see them?
Ritual. People tend to do a lot of meditation when they're trying to open up their abilities, but they have to do purification rituals. Every tradition that had it. I was talking to a Native American person I'm helping, or like someone with shamanistic ability. Unfortunately, because of all the things that happened to Native American people, a lot of their stuff was lost. We don't know what their ancestors knew and didn't know, because there's no written language. It was just storytelling. And when the missions came in, all that talk was, they tried to get rid of it. So we're trying to fill it in as much as we can. But, ritual purification, you have to align with benevolent forces to be able to do this type of work I'm doing. Because if you don't, the energy you pull, you don't know where you're pulling from. So these energies like Reiki or maybe some other healing modality where people consider themselves maybe channeling source or angels or some new age concept like that, they don't really know what they're getting it from. Or some of them are doing ET healing, which has a lot of problems. Now, traditionally, that's how it works, is that there's gatekeepers between these type of modalities, and you have to align yourself with them and come across and purify yourself enough to be able to draw on to those type of gateways and be able to work through other people. And you do that with ritual. Unfortunately, too many don't do that. They try to do everything else and just do meditation. Or there's an idea that you can make your own. A lot of people will just say, I just make my own. And it just turns into this detrimental construct, where eventually the person kind of slides off. I've seen people they become kind of crazy over time, or they get sick, especially when they're doing something like Reiki. Yeah.
So you can learn to see some of these entities through ritual, meditative practices. Okay. And is that something that they may have had since childhood? Or is that something they can develop?
People are at different places, but if you do it enough and are consistent, it'll open up for anyone. Like psychic development workshops, for example, they don't do any of that stuff. They just figure that you're born a certain way and you might have emotional blocks, and you'll develop how you develop. I mean, these aren't gifts for specific people. They're predispositions. Like Michael Jordan, right? He was born with the physical attributes to play basketball, right? It's the same. However, anyone who practices enough can play in the park.
Right.
Right? And look good and not look foolish doing it, right? It's the same thing. So, yeah, anyone could do it. There's an idea that, some people are gifts. They have gifted or they have a gift. It's not like that. It's something that through, perseverance and consistency, you could develop on your own. But you want to do it right, too. Because like I said, if you don't, then you could go kind of crazy. People have gone insane, or they've developed schizophrenia, doing magic or engrossing themselves with the new age. It's a real thing. And I think that's where, the Judeo-Christian idea comes from, of the crazy witch that just goes insane. Or if you practice that stuff, like the devil will make you crazy.
There's some truth to it. It just might not necessarily be the devil. It could be some energy.
Exactly. It's 99.9999% something else. Like these obsessions with the Judeo-Christian adversary is just not something I've really seen. It's something else. And it tells you that in the words or the name itself. What does Satan mean? Right? It means a scapegoat. It's other stuff doing it.
Mm-hmm.
That takes that role just fine.
All right. I think we're kind of at our time limit, at least for the first episode. So any final words for the audience?
No. So like I said, don't take my word for it. I do these sessions, come to it, give it a try. You will get something out of it, and you'll get something noticeable out of it. You don't have to believe. All you have to do is be a little bit open-minded, and it does work.
All right. The link to your channel where you're having these YouTube live streams will be below, and folks, highly encourage you to check it out. And thank you, Benton. It was an absolute pleasure, and we'll talk again soon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
If you enjoyed today's video, please hit like and subscribe, and also hit the notification button so you can be notified whenever I post new content. Thank you. Now, if you're enjoying the channel and you want to support it, there are several things you can do. In fact, there are 5 things you can do. The first thing you can do is just buy my books. I got plenty of books out in the market right now, and I would prefer that folks buy a book rather than giving me direct support, because they get something out of it. They get a real tangible product. The second way you can support me is by becoming a member on YouTube or becoming a patron on Patreon. And just go to either site and it'll explain everything. The third way you can support the channel is by checking out my merch site, which is here. There's plenty of stuff that you can get to support the channel. And I'd appreciate that you have it and can wear it. Not only do you help support the channel, but you also help promote the channel, and I appreciate that. The fourth way that you can support the channel, and this is really easy, is anytime you want to buy something on Amazon, literally just go to the description below and click on any link, literally any link. The channel gets a cut of that, and it costs you no extra money. You just go through the link, as I'm part of the Amazon Affiliates Club. The fifth and final way you can support the channel is through donations. Now, I don't prefer these because it's more of an expression of gratitude, but you don't really get anything out of it as a subscriber to the channel. However, if you decide to do these options, there's 2 options. There's Buy Me a Coffee, which is a separate site, and there's also, you can go through YouTube with either a super chat, super sticker, or a super thanks. Again, I prefer Buy Me a Coffee because that organization takes less money than Amazon does. But either way, I appreciate any support you are willing to give the channel. So thank you very much, and keep watching. I really appreciate it.